Welcome to this panel, which I think has a very exciting topic, and we are not a huge audience, but I think this is a select one for the very interested ones, and we also have, of course, people participating online. And there's too much competition, I think, in terms of too many sessions running at the same time. So 15% and counting. The focus here is on critical raw materials. And I think this is very interesting from an SME perspective. Because, of course, SMEs, it's much more difficult often for them to access critical raw materials. Supply chains are sometimes more complicated, and transparency and support in supply chain management is crucial. At the same time, we have many innovative SMEs, and I hope we will also explore this aspect here. Critical raw materials are usually difficult to replace, but we do have interesting avenues for substitutes. I mean, I'm also in charge of the bioeconomy, and we have lots of very interesting examples where you can actually find substitutes. I mean, take as an example lignin for the graphite for battery production. So I think we can also touch about this innovation angle for SMEs. And of course, the backdrop to all this is that we have a proposal for a Critical Raw Materials Act, which is currently under discussion between in the interinstitutional context. The second trilogue took place yesterday, so I don't have any feedback from this. So I mean, don't ask me anything what happened in the trilogue, but basically the objective is that we advance quickly, and we still want to make sure that this piece of legislation is adopted under this legislature. So I think that's enough for an introduction. We can then, of course, go into in the question section on further points. So let me now briefly introduce the panel. I will let everybody introduce themselves properly, since we haven't known each other for a long time, so I think it makes more sense if you properly introduce yourself. So we have Ander Elgorriaga from the Basque Government Environmental Agency. Then we have Christoph Kubacki, who is the Business Development Director of the EIT Raw Materials. And then we have Niels Baggenholm, who is CEO of MAT for Green Tech. And I think we have an interesting mix of backgrounds here, so which will allow us for an interesting discussion. So the idea is that every speaker has, and please stick to your 7 minutes, to put forward your basically perspective on the topic, and then afterwards we'll still have time for Q&A, both within the room and with the online audience. So then, without further ado, I would like to give the floor to Ander. I think you're supposed to start. So please go ahead.
Oops. Thank you, Christine. So, I'm Ander Elgorriaga. I'm working for 32 years on raw materials efficiency in industry from the Basque Environmental Agency. IOBE is the Basque Environmental Agency of the Basque government, and we are working for 30 years promoting efficiency of materials in industry. We focused mostly on eco-design, on production efficiency, product value retention, and recycling. And we manage the whole environmental policy cycle, from planning to instrument design, to knowledge development, to transfer to industry and cost-effectiveness measurement of environmental policies. So the second point is the Basque Country. Okay, we are the most industrialized region in Spain, and steel, aluminium, and copper are key in our industry because they feed our value chain: automotive, the railway, renewables, electrical equipment, and machinery mainly. As example, only in Basque Country we recycle 150,000 tons a year of copper that has to be refined outside of the Basque Country. Okay, that's another story. So, can you put the next one, please? Oh, I have it. Sorry. Okay, no, this one. Okay, we are working for 8 years on critical raw materials. In 2016, we produced the first diagnosis and proposal of actions. And as a result, we promoted 17 projects of eco-innovation and to reduce the dependence of critical raw materials and environmental impact. And now we have finalized last study and proposal of action of the Basque government that will be published in the next days. But as member, I'm also a member of the European Commission's work in Europe on circular economy policies. And we were quite aware, and I would like to stress our concern that the reduction of environmental impact of strategic and critical raw materials is really a key issue. Often forgotten because we talk about dependency, but the environmental aspect is critical, okay? Therefore, I share this graph of environmental and carbon footprint of the main raw materials. In green are the critical ones, and in not all, but some of them. And in orange, they are the strategic ones. And I want to highlight two conclusions. First, environmental and carbon footprint do not have to go in parallel. You can look at the sample to copper and aluminum, it's quite different, okay? And secondly, recycled metals has always a significantly lower environmental impact. Talking about environment, I'm very happy, as Christine also addressed, that yesterday the Parliament took some decisions on some agreements in this direction. The first was aluminium will be considered a strategic material. I knew it, so I put it there. The benchmark for recycling has to reach 25% of consumption instead of the initially established 15%. And third, critical raw material substitution investments projects should be considered strategic projects that I hope should have more funding, we hope. So, I want to continue. In this slide, I summarize the barriers and opportunities about critical materials for SMEs based on our experience of 6 years of eco-innovative projects we have supported and pushed. Specifically in 5 relevant value chains in the Basque Country. These are permanent magnets, lithium batteries, high alloyed steels, electronic devices, and copper wire. In most of them, we have great strengths, opportunities, and a quite strong value chain. In some stronger, like permanent magnets. And we have also some key SME players on each value chain. But our experience is that except in 2 specific cases, most failed. The specific cases are the manufacturing of copper-containing components and solid lithium-sodium batteries. So, an example, but I will not go in, is that it has high prediction of success. If you take time to read the 5 questions, it's very fast, we have few time, you will understand why value retention of copper-containing components really is an environmental-friendly solution to reduce dependence on strategic material supplies. Okay, it's usually not addressed, but it's really relevant. It's one of the good cases. Okay, but why do SMEs stagnate after so much efforts? If we look at the current situation, it will come as no surprise. I have highlighted the aspects that strengthen the position of large companies against small and medium companies. In red, these are these factors that's favoring large companies. So the current situation is you need a high investment intensities. You have high contribution of large companies to EU targets. You have a key role of the large companies in EU value chains. You have high market prices and prices uncertainty that favor large companies. And you have a CRM Act focused on mining, processing, and recycling that also favor large companies. So now the factors where SMEs can make a difference, they usually have short-term strategies, they have agile and rapid adaptability, the technology development is often insufficient, and they have the ability to close partnerships. So I'm closing already. Because of this, I have distilled the actions that we propose to carry out from the public administrations. In red, the proposals we believe that are interesting for the European Commission that should be reinforced. So in our opinion, the two ones are to speed up recycling content verification and CRM content verification on the standards above, okay? The second one should be to think about an EU package initiative at EU level, mostly more than at national level. It would be very good for SMEs, in our opinion. Then we have 5 actions we will support from a more regional way, and these are supporting research and development, high TRLs on eco-design mainly, but also on product value retention and recycling. We want to support also joint SME procurement initiatives. You want also to support risk evaluation and response to the risk in SMEs. We want, fourthly, to support metals and CRM third-party verifications. And last but not least, to push the value chain dialogue in our region. So, I'm finished. This is a little bit our proposal. We will propose there are 10 actions, but 2 of them, 2 measures are extremely relevant for SMEs. Research and development for high TRLs and the value chain dialogue is key for SMEs. And so I say goodbye because I have 7 minutes or maybe 8. And you have my contacts. If you need anything, you can ask us. Yeah. Thank you.
Well, thank you very much, Sander, also for bringing up particularly issues where SMEs can come in, and also for having, of course, pointed out at the beginning the basic challenge we have, that we have the strategic dependencies, but of course we have the environmental concerns and the not on my backyard approach in many cases in Europe. And I think particularly joint procurement you mentioned is, I think, an interesting aspect. I realize that I forgot to introduce myself. I will do it very quickly, but at least that you know whom you have in front of you as moderator. So my name is Christine Schreiber, that you know. I'm director for chemicals in DG GROW, and also for a number of other ecosystems which are less relevant for this purpose, health, retail, and agri-food. And in the chemical context, of course, we deal a lot with the recycling question, and sometimes I would say the difficulties arising that you have then more contamination, and sometimes, you know, you actually cannot go for recycling because people want a pure product at the beginning. So these challenges we have. So enough from me. So please now, Christoph, EIT.
Thank you. Good morning, everybody. And it is my pleasure to be here today and to talk to you about the EIT raw materials. What is it that we do, and also how we can work together with the SMEs, which are extremely important for the critical and strategic raw materials sector in Europe. I would like to maybe start off by saying that the raw materials sector is by definition very capital intensive, and it also creates a lot of waste. If you think about extracting critical or strategic raw materials, a lot of times you are extracting an ore with an average content of 1, maybe 2% of the metal or mineral that you would like to use, and then 99 or 98% of the rest is a waste. And usually, because it's capital intensive, it's large companies that deal with that, the waste is a problem, and not everybody knows how to tackle this problem. And that's where the SMEs most of the time, in my view, come in, because the SMEs are more agile, they have faster and better way to tackle these challenges, and they can offer solutions that can really resolve the issues in the raw materials industry. Very briefly about EIT raw materials. What is it that we do? Who are we? We are one of the knowledge and innovation communities supported by the EIT, European Institute of Innovation and Technology. We bring together universities, research centers, and industry, large, medium, and small. And we work on 3 specific things. We work on innovation projects. We fund innovation projects from the funding given through the Commission to the EIT. We also support education, very modern education at the university level, but also professional learning in the field of raw materials. And then last but not least, we offer support to entrepreneurship, which is mainly the startups and SMEs. And this is where I would like to draw your attention to, because this is really important for you guys. And we come in with different types of programs that offer this support to both larger innovation consortia that can apply for funding through our calls. We will actually open another call, we call it Kava call, this week, and we will you will be able to see it on our website. There is a two-stage application process to apply for funding, and you can really apply for funding in the across the full value chain of raw materials, and you can get funding from us. You can develop your innovation ideas and projects, and you can bring it to the market. Bringing to the market is also super important for us. We want this innovation to be applied commercially. So we are usually starting at a more advanced TRL level, technical readiness level, if you don't know this. Usually at TRL level of 4, and that's where we have booster or accelerator program for especially startups and SMEs. And then we have more advanced projects that we can support through our innovation funding, but we also work with other investors to support investment cases. And this is very important for you also to know that we are an investor as well. We are supporting specific companies, not only with the grants, but also with investment funding, so they can develop, they can grow, and they can scale their business. And I would like to just show you a few examples of such companies today that we have supported in the past. And there will be actually Niels, who is supported by EIT Raw Materials as well with his company, and he will tell you a little bit more about the details of his venture. So those examples, just a few again. Mag Resource company from France, the first one, they are dealing with rare earth elements in magnets. Rare earth elements are today sourced 100% from outside of Europe, and actually mainly from China. So we are 100% dependent on the imports. We are at very high risk of not being able to use these rare earth elements, and they are absolutely critical for the development and production of rare earth element magnets. And the magnets are used in e-motors, in windmills, or many other devices that are absolutely critical for the green transition. Without the magnets, there is no e-motors, there is no e-mobility, there is no green transition. So that's why the companies like Mag Resource are very important, because they are able to help deal with this issue, and we are supporting them. Another one, ZAC Technologies. I mentioned a lot of waste. ZAC is dealing with the waste that is produced in mineral or metallic extraction. They take the waste and recover this, but also clean it up and make it a useful mineral sand that they can offer to construction companies, which, by the way, have a very high carbon footprint. So that's why it's good to have solutions like that, where you can use the waste and turn it into a valuable product and have a secondary use of that material in the marketplace. Third one, circular silicon, another company from Germany like ZAC. These guys are working on a solution to recover silicon from end-of-life solar panels. These solar panels have been installed in Europe in the 1990s, thereabouts, and they come to their end of life after 20 to 30 years. It's not an exact science, so we don't know exactly when that end of life will be, but it's about 20 to 30 years. And now there is a need to recycle these panels, not just shred them, but actually recover the silver, the silicon, the aluminum from these panels and use them again. This is what the company Circular Silicon does, and they are using the silicon to recover it and to put it back into the aluminum industry, who is the biggest consumer of silicon today. And the last example from a different field, more digital field, but still very much dealing with the critical and strategic raw materials, company called Resourcify, who have actually created a digital platform to connect local recyclers with large companies and to be able to digitize the waste management in Europe. And that has been a very successful company. They have just raised 14 million euros in Series A financing. We have been supporting them much earlier, and these are the type of companies that EIT Raw Materials is supporting. I hope that was a nice introduction into EIT Raw Materials. I would encourage you to connect with us further, and thank you very much for your attention.
Thank you very much, Christoph, for these also very concrete examples. I think it was very interesting. And now we have the chance of having a real CEO of a real company. So Niels, please go ahead. What do you do for green?
Good morning, my name is Niels Borgenholm. I'm the CEO of Mat4Greentech. In Mat4Greentech, we have developed an innovative technology for recycling indium, the material indium from industrial waste. And indium is our 49th element. It is listed by many parts as a critical raw material because we don't have a lot of indium in the crust of the planet. The use of indium is high and the recycling is lacking, and from end-of-life products it's completely missing. About 47% of the known primary reserves are located within China, and the rest is scattered across the planet. And indium is also listed as a political high-risk material. Indium is mostly used in the compound of indium tin oxide, or ITO for short. ITO is a semiconductor material with unique properties of being transparent and also conductive when coated as a thin film on a surface. This makes these properties are ideal for displays and touchscreen, but also solar cell technologies. The global indium market volume is small. It's about 2,000 tons and can easily fit into one single cargo ship. So the idea to work on indium came from our CTO, Dr. Borshak Ebin, when he was doing his master thesis in Istanbul Technical University. He was studying the powder technologies, powder production technologies, and then later in 2013 he moved to Sweden to work in Chalmers University on the battery recycling, or recycling of the materials. He found a synergy between the two technologies, and that was the beginning of our company. So in 2017 we started our company, and from there we spent several years on development of this technology, and today it's TRL, or Technology Readiness Level 6, which means it's a demonstrator process, and we are currently conducting product testing with some of the largest indium companies in the world. Indium recycling from scrap already exists today. It is mainly done in China and South Korea, but with our innovative technology, we can go directly from industrial waste directly to an indium tin oxide powder, which is completely unique, and as a result, we have about 35% higher efficiency than current state of the art. So, over the years, we have built a large network of within the indium industry. We have strategic partners for know-how of the global value chains and business collaborations. We have, of course, investors and fund organizations for fundraisings, and customers for scrap return and obviously sales. And today we have customer traction from all over the world, including China, Taiwan, South Korea, and the United States. And I think to have a successful recycling loop in EU, the two main ingredients that are important is a market and it's a source of scrap. And for us, this is the same. And for our customers are primarily the PV cell manufacturers, so the guys that make the solar cells. And the European Solar PV Industry Alliance has clear goals of increasing the output capacity of the solar cell to 30 megawatt from today's 1 megawatt. And this will be the driving force for indium demand going forward. But unfortunately, there are barriers to overcome to reach these solar cell goals. And the first obstacle to overcome is the Chinese attempt to dominate in the EU PV market by artificially low pricing coming from state subsidies and the use of working caps for PV cell production. So if I can quote the European Solar Manufacturing Council here, the European solar industry and the plan to strengthen European resilience are under threat from Chinese PV manufacturers intentionally driving down prices. Over recent months, massive stockpiles of Chinese PV modules in European ports equivalent to Europe's entire annual installation demand have built up. Imports are projected to reach 120 gigawatt in 2023, overshadowing expected installations of just over 60 gigawatt. And due to this, the European Union PV cell manufacturing output was drastically reduced. The second obstacle to overcome is the attempt by foreign state to monopolize the small critical raw material markets in attempt to control the much larger consumer markets. So let me take you on a quick journey here on the recent history of indium. In 2011, Fanya Metal Exchange was born. It was a Chinese state-backed metal exchange platform for trading rare elements, including indium and other minor metals. In 2015, Fanya Metal Exchange filed for bankruptcy, and when the claims agent inventoried the bankruptcy estate, they found 3,200 tons, which is equivalent of 5 years' worth of primary source of indium that have been hidden from the market in efforts to keep the global indium price high. And naturally, the indium price plummeted due to that from about $700 to $200 per kilogram. And going back to 2010, at this time, in EU was the top of indium tin oxide production and export, but a coming shift towards Far East was evident in the market, and in 2014, EU's main ITO maker decided to make a joint venture with Chinese company Vital Chem. The company Vital Thin Film Material was founded, and this was the beginning of Chinese vacuum cleaning of global indium and minor metal companies. So for example, in 2017, Vital acquired a whole joint venture. In 2018, this joint venture acquired Heraeus, which is a German company, their Singapore sputtering target division. Sputtering target is how indium is used in the industry. And in 2020, they acquired a German-based FHR, as well as Samsung Corning. The whole Samsung supplier of indium products was purchased. And in 2021, Vital acquired also German-based PPM Pure Metal. So, coming back to Fanya indium stockpile, in 2019, 4 years after the collapse of the metal exchange, the indium stockpile was sold on auction. But according to the Chinese vendor, the indium received no bids at all, and the prices had to be dropped. Eventually, Vital comes out as a buyer for the full indium stockpile. So just to summarize, China is the main producer of indium. A Chinese state-backed metal exchange manipulates the global indium prices, and after they go bankrupt, a Chinese company buys the indium stockpile on a discount, while the same Chinese company seemingly tried to monopolize the market by acquiring all their competition. So, what can we do about this? So I think, first and foremost, immediate exclusion from the European market of all products, including solar modules produced by forced labor. Include indium and ITO into CBAM, that is a carbon border adjustment mechanism, to protect the markets from predatory pricing. And finally, promote the use of recycled critical raw materials by providing support to the local markets. That's it. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Niels. So now we come to the Q&A part. I don't know whether... No? Yeah, that's what I was going to do. Okay. All right. Okay, so I'll still keep this in case somebody wants to ask online. So I just want to open the floor if you have some reactions, questions to, I would say, the very complimentary presentations which were made. Otherwise, I'll start with one myself, but I think this is the advantage of a smaller setting, that it's actually quite easy to have a proper interaction and discussion, so please don't be shy. Okay, well, I'll start with you then.
Yeah, I have I have a question for Anders. So thanks for all your presentations. You had 5 sectors selected, and you work with one leading SME company. So I would like to hear how you select that company, why that company is in it, and how it then also attracts other companies within that sector. So how is that mechanism working?
No, I did an example for each value chain because we work with them. So we have done a value chain analysis. For example, for permanent magnets, I go into permanent magnets because it's a hot issue on critical raw materials. So we have analyzed the value chain. We have an extremely high possibility. We have supported some projects because we have extremely relevant recyclers that we have extremely good technology centers that have put this spin-off that is working now that can really extract and make new magnets from old ones, and with a good technology, better than the hydrogen one. Sorry, more efficient. All this we have also the value chain of the permanent magnets companies that need the magnets, like motors, and we have 3-4 products. We have 6 or 7 big good SMEs working with permanent magnets, and we have the customers of the Gamesa, Siemens Gamesa, and lifts, and a lot of customers of the motors with permanent magnets. So we have the whole value chain, and the first problem is we have no magnets. We have no magnets. Sorry. You have no business, there is no magnets. Everybody's waiting for the magnets from the north of Europe, from the windmills of the offshore windmills. But we need maybe 10 years more, 8 years, I think, to get the magnets. And everybody wants the magnets. So it will be a big fight. So we are too soon, because we have the value chain, but we have not the magnets. So we get some magnets, but we have not enough to have these 40 tons, no, how much? We need about 200 tons of magnets for our industry, but we have to wait 8 years for these 200 tons. So it's a problem of timing. And then when the magnets comes, probably Chinese companies will be there negotiating very hard and take the magnets to China. I don't know. So we have big problems. So this was the first one, and we have also about highly alloy steels, no? We have a big industry with steels and high alloyed aluminum and steel with tungsten and cobalt and this. They close the whole chain of the tools for machining and all this. But at the end, they have to go to Austria to be recycled. The logistics were extremely complicated, and now they fell down and don't do it more. And we have also extremely good company recycling rare earths in Bilbao, just here, Indumetal Recycling. There was a company who recycled the rare earths. They have closed down. They ask me every month, who should I send these rare earths? Because we have the rare earths. They are not refined, but we want to refine them. Extremely hard to get the solution because the multinational has closed the company here. So the reality is totally different and quite hard, and extremely hard for SMEs. So most of those components failed. So because of this, I put an example of this value retention of components that it just is going extremely high, because these companies taking from the waste, not the metal, but the whole component, to put it back in production. But not one. Maybe their objective is to take back 1 million, okay? Not 1 million. And then it's much better. The process, they will not recycle, but remanufacture it to put it in the new products again. This is good, because it's closing the loop in a much higher value stage. Okay.
Thank you. Yes, please.
Thank you very much. Lovely presentation, folks. Kieran Comerford, I'm from Ireland. One thing I often hear from SMEs is the challenge around buying now and knowing what's recyclable at end of life. And I'm just wondering, does the panel have any opinions on what an SME can do around decisions before they buy, as opposed to at the end of the life when they have that recycling challenge?
So for us, it's we use a combination of the primary source and the scrap and the scrap comes directly from the customer. So if the question was about obtaining the scrap material, this is a highly important area, and for us it comes directly from the customer. So the more customers we have, the more scrap we will get. I hope that answered your question.
Are there other, I suppose there are other models as well. So this is one model, which is, of course, I would say the easiest. Do you know
for
others?
end of life, today there is no recycling of the indium from the end of life products, but we put them on landfill. We collect the displays, so the indium is coated in, for example, we break open this iPad, there will be a display in here, and the indium is coated as a thin layer on this display. And currently the material like the chip and all these things are getting recycled, the circuit board, but the display panel is stored. So last time I checked where it went outside of Europe. So I was tracking it from Sweden to Baltic countries, and from Baltic countries I couldn't track it any longer. They just told me that no, it goes outside of Europe. If you want to have it, we can send it to you in tons. But today we ship it outside of Europe, and where it goes, I don't know. But it's a big problem.
I think also the challenge is that our experience is that many of the end-of-life products do not have technologies for full closing the loop recycling. So we see some companies or some researchers working on parts of the recovery. This company I was talking about, Circular Silicon. I mean, they recover silicon. It's not to the purity that you could put it back as a pure silicon into use. It's a bit. It still has a bit of deleterious elements. So the only usage that they can provide is to the aluminum industry. It's still fine because the aluminum industry is the biggest consumer of silicon. But what we see in general is that for such products, end-of-life products, the availability of technologies and companies that deal with that is actually not that big. We see a lot of room for especially SMEs to come in and work on innovative solutions that can tackle these challenges. So in solar panels, you would think, okay, there is many companies working on this. Actually, we know only of about a handful, and that's it in Europe. That there are not many more. And in many situations today, recycling is actually more like shredding, or it's not really recovering all the necessary elements. I think the Critical Raw Materials Act, the ambition that it raises about the 15% recycling target is very important. We need some further supporting mechanisms. Niels was talking about carbon border adjustment mechanism. There's also funding that needs to be provided. There is some funding available in Europe, but there needs to be more. In general, there is very high level of interest for projects that are in the area of circular economy. And there is the doors from the financial institutions are wide open. Everybody that hears about circular economy, the door is immediately wide open. So I think there is an opportunity there, but more also needs to be done, and that's the challenge to the SMEs, but also to the researchers and universities. More needs to be done on the innovation side to provide technologies that can be really applied.
Yeah, and I want to highlight something again I touched on before, is the markets. If we, for example, in Asia, there are all these semiconductor markets. So now we have the CHIP Act, for example, to increase our semiconductor output, and that will drive the demand for some certain types of critical raw materials. But to recycle the material, we must have local markets. It's extremely important for the recycling loop, because as soon as generally it's small margins, and it requires a bit of volume to make a profit on it. In fact, you can basically recycle anything in a laboratory, but the cost is too high, and you cannot make a profit. And this is the main problem, that why entrepreneurs will not go in here. Maybe so we need to have the markets in Europe to promote the recycling as well, and to make it make the skilled entrepreneurs also want to go in and want to tackle this problem. So I think it's a very critical thing to think about.
Maybe just a follow-up question on that one. I mean, you talked about the opportunities for SMEs to get into this sphere, and you mentioned that, I mean, margins are pretty low, etc. What about demand? Because, of course, the issue is that, I mean, the recycled one, as you said, very often has some contamination, is not as pure, may not have sort of the same uses. Is the demand there, and is it a matter of, I mean, basically, do you need technology advances to have material which is as usable for the same purposes than the sort of native virgin one? Or is it, I mean, is it basically, is it not enough exploration in terms of how we can use the recycled material?
I think, I mean, the situation is slightly changing. The problem is always that, and I think that goes back to the previous question as well, the commitment from the end users, the off-takers. They look at the price ultimately. They are not really driven by other aspects so far. There are initiatives in the critical and strategic raw materials industry to, for example, produce green copper or green steel, and the producers are definitely putting an emphasis on that. I think the shareholders are also paying much more attention to ESG aspects. Where it is still lacking is the off-takers, who are not, should not only be driven by the price, but if they are driven by the price, then also we need some supporting mechanisms in place to help overcome that. However, we already see the shift where, 3-5 years ago, construction companies would not be interested in any, for example, mineral sand that is coming from waste. Today, this is changing because they are facing the challenge of emissions of carbon dioxide that is very heavy in their case, and they need to look for different solutions. If you look at OEMs like car companies, it would be unthinkable 5 or 10 years ago that a car company would be looking at a mining project and wanting to invest already into the extraction phase. Today, they are doing that because they need to secure the lithium, the cobalt, the graphite for their batteries in the future. And I think it will be probably a combination of, the need from the end users and then their commitment to support some technologies and ventures, but also maybe some regulatory framework that can help support this. If we look at the availability of primary raw materials in Europe, it's limited. Europe is not that big a continent, and we have some deposits, but not all of them, not all of the materials. We will need to rely on some imports from, like-minded countries and stable partners, but we also need to increase recycling rates. That is not a question at all.
Yes?
When we look at steel and aluminum, a lot of European OEMs are already asking for recycling content to companies. When you go to SMEs, they're extremely stressed because they cannot verify it at this moment. But if we look also to the regulation, we have the eco-design regulation that has already put the standards EN 45557 and 45558 for recycling content and critical raw materials content. So this is not yet in most of the products because it has to go down and to be defined de facto very, very in depth, and they are not so fast, the European Commission. But de facto, the signal is already put to ask for this for the OEMs. So you take the systems like EcoVadis and CPM that are making green supply chain management, and they are already beginning to ask this. So they give points, and they give points also in the contracts for the suppliers. So the whole value chain is now moving maybe faster than the own European Commission. So in this way, sometimes the Commission puts some slogans, and the uptake in the companies in the business sector is faster than their own Commission. So I hope that it goes this way if there are technical solutions. If you have no technical solution, you cannot. But I hope that it will. And then the changes are very fast. You have recycled plastic, nobody wants, and in 3 months, everybody is asking, the big OEMs are asking for recycling plastics in all toilet products. And our company said, in 3 months, I cannot give a response. You are too late, okay? Because the changes are then extremely fast when companies, OEMs, begin to ask. All together, they begin to ask in few months, and you have no solution. So you should be prepared, because you need 3, 4, 5 years to prepare yourself, but the demand comes in 2, 3 months, and you have demand and you lose the markets. Okay?
Yes, Mark?
The investment activity of the EIT raw materials. Do you do direct investments, or have you set up your own investment fund to invest in those companies? And what is the average ticket that you can invest in those companies that you have mentioned? Thank you very much. Should I repeat the question?
No, I mean, I've heard it. I don't know if people online have heard it, but so EIT Raw Materials does direct investments. We have been, so the companies I have presented, most of them have also received direct investments from us, and the tickets that we can issue today to startup and SME companies through these direct investments are at a moderate level of 200,000 euros per year. That, however, does not preclude these companies for applying for bigger funding from us. That is done through these innovation calls. So I have mentioned the Kava call that will be open later this week, and there the companies can receive further funding. However, we are also working with other investors. Like I said, there is very high level of interest in the topics of recycling and circular economy in the marketplace, and we are also working now on establishing our actually 2 different funds. One would be supporting the startups and SMEs, and that is called a startup fund that we are working on, and we would like to establish that next year. And there we are talking about roughly 100 million euro investment fund that would be more suited for Series A type funding for these startups and SMEs that are growing. And then secondly, we see the need to establish a real raw materials investment fund that would be a much bigger facility, something in the order of at least 2 billion euros, where of course other investors need to come in. We would like to be one of the players in that fund, and we definitely see the need to establish these facilities, hopefully at least one of them next year, and then we will see how it progresses with the bigger fund. I think there, the European Commission is doing the right steps with the Critical Raw Materials Act. That's a very, very good step forward. What we need to remain competitive is we also need some dedicated funding, because this is where the US through the Inflation Reduction Act or the Canadians with their recent infrastructure fund, they are supporting these investments directly, and we need something of a similar type of facility in Europe.
Thank you very much.
In the back.
Thank you. Thank you, everyone. It was a great panel. I just wonder, after your intervention and your last intervention, shouldn't there be just like there was a really fast COVID relief fund that was available to SMEs, shouldn't something like that exist? If you're saying that in 3 months you're getting a crazy demand of different materials for someone that is doing something as cool as what you're doing with recycling, such an important element, shouldn't there be like a relief fund as well for SMEs going into the green transition? Because sure, if you're creating something in the upcoming, in a year, these 2 people that are actually coming up with like a sustainable solution, they won't have time to do it, or they will lose clients for that. and then a bigger corporation will take it.
Yeah, but it's not about money. I think it's not about funding. The funding has to be before. You have to. What is extremely complicated for SMEs is to understand the whole packet of measures of the European Commission that is totally integrated. And I think of this place, maybe nobody understands. Maybe neither myself, because it's extremely complicated integrations of all regulations and all this. So it's quite impossible that I don't know any SMEs in the Basque Country that really understands what is happening on Environmental Commission and how it affects to its own business, because it's so complex. So what we have to do as public administration, more relevant than funding, is to explain really in your case what is coming and how it affects to you and how to play, because it's so complex that there's, I don't know, no supplier, no consulting that knows this. Really, we have big problems because we have to show to the consultings how to think about, because it's extremely complex. So to bring this to the companies, I think is the most important issue. The fast funding, it's good, but you have to do it 3 years before than coming, because you have 2 months, you cannot do anything. You will spend a lot of money if you do it 2-3 months before the problem comes. It's too late. You need 3-4 years for changes, no? Or much more, like 6 years or 7.
So when it comes to the funding part, there are two aspects to it. One is to attract the funding, which takes a lot of time, and the other aspect is to use the money, which also takes some time. So just because you get a lump sum of money, it still takes a project plan and lots of time to develop the technology. And when it comes to big companies to overtake you, this is always a risk. And the way we tackle this risk is by constantly checking the new IP, the new patents coming out on the market, looking at the trends of the technologies happening in the indium industry, and that's how we protect. And then when the time comes, then we will take measures to protect the IP in certain ways, depending on what the market is asking for at this point. But I think the number one thing is to always have a check the patents, check the IP that is happening, check the publications in this area, what is going on in this area. And then okay, maybe we have two years, we have 3 years, we can continue developing, or no, now it's the time to go really, really fast, because it comes with risk, and it's all of it is like risk assessment. Yeah.
Just one thing I wanted to mention. We had this COVID facility for SMEs back in 2020, and that was direct funding from the Commission that provided extra funding for the SMEs. And we had very high interest in that at the time, which was very, very good. The problem you generally face in this industry is that usually it's a long-term investment industry. Of course, you can apply certain measures. China will curtail graphite exports, or they will curtail gallium and germanium exports. These are topics that have come up in the recent several months. And then everybody jumps on this and okay, how can we produce now graphite or germanium in Europe? It doesn't happen overnight. And it's just because you will provide funding for it doesn't mean that you will find a solution. I think there has to be a long-term strategy. How do we make sure that we have domestic supply of critical and strategic raw materials? The Commission has a very clear view on this, what these are, and how can we implement the measures to support these investments. The funding, I'm confident that can be organized. It's probably the measures, and especially this long-term view, that we need to make this a success.
And I think the reference in terms of funding here is less the COVID facility, which was basically to weather the storm and for companies to stay alive, than like net zero or, replicating to a certain extent the IRA in the US. So I think that's the relevant bit here. And we have STEP, of course, as well, where you have specific technologies identified. So in the interest of time, and I'm very happy we had a lively discussion, I will collect the 2 last questions. I think I've seen 2 hands up. So if the mic could move over there, thank you. And there was one other person, just if you can already,
Hi, thank you very much. So, Niels, you mentioned the Chinese monopolization strategy, right? And I think, from as far as I know, there's tools on EU member states level to prevent those acquisitions. So, do you see that happening in indium or any other materials? Do you see that being implemented? And if not, why? What is the reason? Thank you.
Do you ask about if I see the European tools being implemented to counter the monopolization of the indium? I don't see it. I don't. And this is not just a problem in Europe. We have partners in Taiwan as well. They are struggling. There was we have two ITO makers, giant ITO makers, used to be the two main providers of ITO in Japan. One of them is called JX Nippon Mining and Metal, and this year they canceled, they closed down their ITO production because of the competitive nature landscape from the Chinese. And this is not a normal competitiveness. This is state subsidy type. It's like running a marathon against someone juiced up on steroids. It's not a fair game. So that's why I bring it up. No, I don't see enough measures being made. But we have the tools. We have the CBAM, for example. So we can implement it, and I think rather rapidly as well. And I know they have been talking about anti-subsidy measures as well in the European Union, and for the PV cell that is flooded the European market. Also the cars, actually, the electric vehicle from China that was going first to United States, and then it was blocked, and then come to the EU. So there are measures to block these things. But I don't see it at the moment.
But maybe while you bring the mic for the last question here, I mean, we do have new legislation now, screening, pre-screening investments, notably from China. I think the verdict is still out how many actually, because member states are consulted, and then we have the possibility to actually block. So I think the verdict is still out how often that is actually applied. But I mean, there was a reaction to the points you actually identified. So quickly, the last question, and then I think we have to empty the room.
Thank you for the panel, and I will try to make it very short. So it's also for EIT. I represent the healthcare sector, let's say. For example, for health tech, probably is resins and plastics or fabric, the top materials, but there's also an increasing demand on metals. There's a big, I think, instrument in EIT, which is the cross-kicks. We are working on the EIT health and EIT manufacturing cross-kicks, or forcing cross-kicks. So will we see, for example, cross-kick also with the raw materials, because in the manufacturing or biomanufacturing for healthcare, this could be a very powerful instrument to support SMEs. By the way, I think that the Green Deal industrial plan is also something that can be interlinked with that. But I see that as a powerful idea to support SMEs on this sector.
I agree. I think the cross-kick funding is actually very much steered by the EIT itself. So we can of course propose measures as the kicks, EIT health, EIT manufacturing, EIT raw materials. But I think it's also very good if partners or members of the different kicks send that message directly to the EIT that, hey, make sure you use the cross-kick funding in the best possible way. I think that's a very powerful way. We use cross-kick funding for something we call Jumpstarter competitions, for really to become entrepreneurs, especially from risk countries, and Spain is one of them, where we provide them with funding, but also with coaching to learn how to build a business plan, and then there is a competition. I think there could be more cross-kick funding supporting SMEs. I would love to see that, and I think if you can help us spread the word to the EIT, I would really appreciate it. Yeah.
Thank you.
Okay, so thank you very much to the, I think we ran over 4 minutes, but I hope it's okay because a coffee break is long. So thanks a lot to the panelists and to the very active audience. So I think we had an interesting exchange and certainly to be continued. And we will follow first when the Commission proposal will be adopted, and then I think what kind of measures may be needed in a complementary way to that. So thanks a lot to everyone.